I want to talk about the Rode Wireless Go 2s, how these performed in a recent trip that I took to New York, and put it kind of a little bit to a stress test that we haven't really seen in a lot of scenarios. And I think they did a really good job in some tough situations. So when the Rode Wireless Go 2s came out, these released while we were all still indoors mostly. This wasn't a whole bunch of conferences and stuff. So when the original versions came out, many people could test those out on a showroom floor. Not so much so when these were released. So it's kind of been questionable just how much better the first ones are versus the second one. Because to sit in front of a camera like this and to not be that far away, even with an interview, not too bad. Now, the software update alone makes it worth getting these versions versus the first ones. And so I highly recommend getting these over the original versions, even though they may be slightly cheaper. The main scenario that I was most questioning was that showroom floor. A lot of people, a lot of motion and activities, other things that could interrupt the 2.4 gigahertz band. So that's how these two connect and talk together. Now, without going into too much detail of UHF and VHF frequencies, it makes the difference between a simple setup like this versus getting something like a Sennheiser setup where you need to dial in the specific channel, and that's the frequency that you're operating on. And that's a stellar setup that's worked in traditional media for a long time. But when you're just trying to get the job done, these are perfect for that. And a lot of people have switched even from those to a set of these. So now we have a bunch of people in the room, and I have my camera set up in the back, and I'm now going to stage. It's great because it has the recording features built in so that these will record even though that they're turned on. It literally doesn't have to be connected to the camera for that recording to happen. Simply when I turn these two on together, they're recording. Now, there is an update to where you can literally only turn on the transmitter so that it will record by itself. I personally don't need it to operate in that way. I would prefer to be able to see when it's recording and when it's not. And if I don't want the audio file that's recording, I could just kind of mute it over here on the receiver. The other cool thing is that when you are doing a recording and you're seeing this on the file, on the software, you'll see a flag that's denoted to let you know that there was some kind of an issue or a drop in the signal. Well, with the audio recording, it keeps pressing on, so you actually don't lose any audio. I think this maybe happened a couple times for whatever reasons. Could have been, getting out of range a little bit or something, or too much of something in the way. From my understanding, it should have been a clear shot, but either way, it's able to let me know specifically where the drops are in the recording file. That way we can sync that audio up in post so that there's no issues or no lost audio, which is very, very vital when you're recording your own talks. The other scenario I was really curious about is when you have a bunch of these in the same spot, all of these 2.4 gigahertz band operation things, the Comica Boom XD, the Rode Wireless Go 1s and 2s, and a bunch of people that now have these, what's going to happen then? Obviously, the recording would help, but that doesn't help if you're live streaming from your camera. Let's say you're using a Sony Xperia phone and you literally only need that phone and your camera. You can stream from your camera at that point. Well, if you're losing the audio, recordings after the fact can help, but it doesn't help the live audio. In that sense, we had Meredith Marsh that was there, and we shared a table through the whole event. So shout out to Meredith. She did an excellent job. Doc Rock was there also did excellent job at his talk. So all of us have these Rode wireless devices. She had the version 1s, and Doc and I think we had the version 2s. Well, are they going to interrupt each other? And the answer I found for that is no. What happens is, I don't know if hers or Doc's had any issues, but if they did, I never did. So at the same time, with a bunch of these on and operating to the own individual user's use case, there was no problem. So I really appreciate it just to know that if somebody else is doing their own thing, and Shelly saves the day, she also had one, so which was really dope. And we had that on the little handheld kajigger, and it was amazing. So that whole setup was just super smart that Shelly had. So Shelly, you saved the day. The other thing that happened is the audio guys were having their Rode Wireless Go setups, asking you to lapel up, even though you're going to have a wireless unit so that they could have redundant audio. And then if you're recording your own talk, then you have your own setup. So I just kind of buttoned my sweater so I could have the lapels in the same spot, and I tested the audio ahead of time, and it worked out really, really well. I don't know if they had any drops or anything in their audio issues or anything. I never even thought to ask, but I can say I was very well pleased with how that specifically turned out. Now, I think it's important to note how well the audio performs on these, and based on your camera, I think is really going to be based on your lapel unit. I used the Rode SmartLav Plus with this, and even though that one's specifically for smartphones, it helps when I'm trying to switch between either of just having this little adapter or not. That way I kind of get dual use out of it versus the reverse. It's easier to find a TRS adapter than a TRRS adapter sometimes, even though I have both. This microphone, in my opinion, sounds best on my voice. I did a comparison of like a bunch of cheap microphones, like under $50, and this one to me sounded the best. So if you're going to be using a lapel microphone, you do want to make sure you're testing your audio with your microphone in that scenario as loud as you would get and as soft as you could get. Because one of the cool things though is Rode Wireless Go will keep you from peaking the audio. It'll kind of protect it a little bit. So even if the audio is hot going into the camera, something with the recording on this file, whether it's compression or however it's recording, I don't remember. You have to check out the video that I did on that, but it does a really, really good job with picking up the audio and protecting it so that you're not peaking and distorting the audio. So it's essentially saved. I really wish the update had come out where you could connect this through your smartphone when we were actually in New York, so then I could have tested it at that point, because that really does help when you're entering different environments or scenario, not having to pull your computer up, just to make some changes if you want compressed or uncompressed audio, if you want to do a backup channel or not a backup channel or whatever. So this new update is linked in the description down below. And if you want to see the video on how to actually get that set up, you click on the video on the screen and check that out next.